Hey everybody, welcome back to the 25th episode of The Adam Show. Today we're going to talk a little bit about communication, and I'll show you some clips from this show to demonstrate how I like to try to communicate with you to make it a little bit more engaging. My cousin Amy sent me a question about communication, how words are important, how they change the meaning of things if we tweak little words here and there. There's a little bit in there about the news, perhaps, how if something was worded differently, would she have responded differently to the news reporting? So this is quite a vast topic, and it's something I do have a bit of expertise on. So I'm just going to talk about a couple of fun things today, and then we'll come back to it in further episodes to talk more about the importance of words and how we communicate. So thanks a lot for that question, Amy. All right, guys, let's start the show. So I'd like to speak a little bit about words, why they matter, and how people in newsrooms across this country have to decide what words to use and what words to not use when they're writing up a story. So one specific incident that took place was in July of 2019. The President of the United States was in the midst of a Twitter rant about 4 Democratic congresswomen who he apparently doesn't care for too much, and he threw out what a lot of people considered to be a racist trope. So for a little context here, these are our 4 freshman congresswomen. They're considered to be part of the left-wing progressive part of the Democratic Party. We're talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and Ayanna Pressley. I hope I pronounced those names right. Right, so let's look at this tweet here. So what we have here is a series of tweets from the president calling out some Democratic congresswomen. And it's noted here that he decided to use what is widely considered to be a racist trope in calling for them to go back to the countries from where they came. The wording's a little different here, which should be noted. It does appear that perhaps someone else decided to write this tweet, to be honest with you. So he's referencing these 4 progressive congresswomen that I mentioned before. And you have to understand this is in the middle of even more tweets about these congresswomen. So there's no question about who he's referencing here. But the reporters, journalists, had to consider, since there is what is perceived as a racist trope in the middle of this, do they call this tweet in their stories racist? Can you use an adjective like that? Should you use an adjective like that to describe it? This is obviously coming from the President of the United States, the leader of the free world, so it's something you have to take seriously if you're a journalist. So regardless of how you feel about this tweet, whether or not you think it's racist, it doesn't really matter. That's not really the point of this conversation. But what this did was it caused newsrooms across the country to really question how they report on the president's tweets. Some people say perhaps we should not be reporting the president's tweets, but what you have to realize here is that it's always been policy in journalism that what the president says matters, right? More so than, say, a freshman congresswoman or some actor or a random person on the street. So you have to report what the president says. And this is the first president we've had that has used Twitter like this on a personal level. The Obama administration had a White House Twitter account, but they didn't really put much up there. It was just generic press releases and things like that. So this is new ground for reporters in covering the president. And he really uses Twitter as a political tool. It's kind of his battle axe. He can go after political opponents. He can get straight to his constituency. He can attack people. He can make jokes, all of these types of things. It's a very effective way to communicate. But there was a specific conversation that was being had after this tweet came out at National Public Radio, NPR, about whether or not they should call the tweet racist. And I don't mean quote someone calling it racist or attribute that concept to someone else, but to actually say, in a racist tweet today, President Trump said blah, 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 whatever. So it's a great conversation. The Vice President of Diversity and Training, Keith Woods, was adamantly against using the term racist. And it's understandable. His argument was that we, as journalists, as reporters, are meant to present the information and allow our readers to make that decision. You're always being told to use AP style in print journalism and to use more subjective language in broadcast journalism. even though in broadcast journalism you're meant to use more colorful conversational language. But the use of adjectives is generally monitored closely, especially when they're charged. If it's charged language, racist, imbecilic, idiotic, these types of things. All things that I think you could use to describe Donald Trump's tweets as a layman. But as a professional journalist, you're not really meant to cross that line. So I'm going to post that article along with the radio story down below here. Click on that and give it a listen. It's really kind of interesting, this back and forth that these folks at NPR have and trying to determine whether or not they have a responsibility to call this stuff racist or if that should not be in their purview. So it's an interesting time to think about this, about how should we report these things? What kind of language should we use? Trying to be responsible yet actually report what's happening at the same time. But moving on from there, you notice that politicians use their hands a lot when they speak. It's an effective way to communicate and grab people's attention and to help express yourself. I find that when I use my hands, it helps me be more rhythmic and it helps the timing and things like that. So let's take a look back here at some times on this show where I've used my hands extensively in communicating to you guys. Was this effective? Was it distracting? Is it funny? I don't know. Let's take a look. I'm just trying to be thankful for what I have, my family, my friends. The shirt from DC. I got a hat from Pittsburgh. I've got pictures on the wall from Egypt. I've got this pen. No, this is not your pen. This was your pen. Now it's my pen. Filmmakers kind of do all that stuff: music, writing, sculpture, painting, I suppose, in a more abstract way, photography through cinematography. So I like that it's all of these things, and you can do all of those things, or you can hire people to do these things, but you're involved in every aspect of that creative process, from the pre-production where you have writing and just the development of story, to the building of the sets, to the setting up of the lighting, to the actual production itself, where you have the actors doing their thing, all these people working together, a greater, bigger themes, and giving these characters an ability to really do crazy things like teleport or single-handedly just bring down star destroyers. What I really love about theirs is they serve it with a crunchy baguette as opposed to tortillas. That might sound just straight up wrong to some people, but it really, really makes a difference. It's all about the textures with menudo for me, and if you can have this extra texture, like this crunchy bread to dip into that, that balances out with the softness of the tripe itself. No, a hot dog is not a sandwich, my friend. A sandwich must have bread, meat, vegetables, bread. Right. So that was pretty funny. I think it's effective to use your hands when you're speaking on screen, on television. In person, it can be a little more intense. Look at Bernie Sanders. He's effective when he uses his hands on screen, but you notice the people next to him are a little distracted by it and a little put off by it, especially if they're in close proximity. But let's get back to this use of superlatives and adjectives in communication. This is something we all do. We tend to overuse these types of adjectives when we can't necessarily think of what we want to say or how we want to describe something. This is something that I learned a lot about when I was studying Spanish, particularly early on. When a professor would ask you, how was your weekend? How are you? Questions like that. When you're first learning a language, you tend to just jump to these really simple, ambiguous words that you've learned. A question like, ¿Cómo fue el fin de semana? ¿Cómo era el fin de semana? How was your weekend? You could answer just simply with increíble or magnífico or tranquilo. So your professor comes back with, no. ¿Qué pasó? ¿Qué hiciste? Like, what did you do? What did you do this weekend? So then you have to go and think back about what you did and actually speak the language a little bit. And it gets you to open up and actually describe things in a way that means something. Looking back on some of these episodes, I noticed, wow, I need to really work on this, cutting back on these adjectives and superlatives that are just generic. So let's take a look here. Now, Arches is awesome because it's really manageable and it's spectacular. It's like nothing else I've ever seen. It's otherworldly. All those spectacular features were just illuminated. It was incredible. It's really nice. They're both spectacular and beautiful. Utah is just incredible. The people there are incredible, and southern Utah is the most beautiful, beautiful place in this country. Zion National Park is also in Utah. This place just looks incredible. Right. So you could go back and actually do a drinking game probably. Anytime Adam says incredible, take a drink. But studying a different language can really help you out with these things. It can help you understand your own language better, grammar, syntax, what is really behind the meaning of certain words and the way you use them. One more thing quickly before I end this episode today. Sometimes you can pick up a newspaper that's in a different language, if you know enough of the language, obviously. And it really will give you an idea of how print media should probably be written. There is a publication here in Whatcom County called El Periódico. It's a Spanish language newspaper. But I was reading this article the other day, and we'll just read this through here real quick for you. Quedarse en casa, mantenerse seguro. That's that stay home, stay safe initiative Governor Jay Inslee here in Washington State has imposed. Apparently that's the slogan we're going with. So basically this paragraph saying that that program is scheduled to continue until May 4th, right? But then we have a new model from the Department of Health of the County of Whatcom County that suggests that more time will be necessary to prevent a second wave or a second outbreak of cases and deaths this summer. So you break down this sentence and it's just straightforward reporting. There's nothing really to it. There's nothing subjective about that. The stay-at-home order is scheduled to end on May 4th, but according to the Whatcom County Department of Health, we're going to need to hold on a little bit longer here. So there you have it. Sometimes reading the news from a different language, you can kind of just go through and pick out the facts. One thing I did notice here, and this is kind of fun to talk about, is this word hola that I hadn't actually seen before. I didn't know that this was a word even. It's pronounced just like hola, O-L-A versus H-O-L-A. But they mean very different things. Hola, O-L-A, means wave. It also means outbreak. So this is something we're seeing probably a lot in the Spanish language press, this word hola. I like it. Hopefully we won't be saying hola, hola anytime soon, or we won't be saying hola una segunda hola. So let's just keep at it. Let's not prematurely jump to normalcy if it's not necessary. I know we all want to get back to it, but we need to make sure we're being vigilant here and make sure we're not doing anything that will bring about a large second wave of COVID cases over the summer. Anyway, fun conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for the question, Amy. So I'm going to talk about linguistics and language and communication a little bit more moving forward. I can find fun ways to get at it, I think. I don't want to just sit here and give you a lecture about language and stuff like that or media writing. So that'll be it for the show today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Part 3 of the 25th episode will be up tomorrow. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about, but should be fun. So we will see you tomorrow. Stay safe and stay sane, everybody. Cheers.